Sumo.
Neville, do you have an example of what our audience is going to be able to do after they watch this full program?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I learned from copywriting is that it can dramatically basically increase the number of sales you get from an email or whatever you write on your site. So a lot of people have websites up, a lot of people send emails out, but they're doing it in kind of like the totally wrong way. And I used to do exactly the same thing. I got to show you an example if you'd like.
Yeah. Is what I'm looking at your screen, that's your site, your newsletter?
Well, these were newsletters for my business, houseofrave.com, which is just a drop shipping website for rave supplies of all things. And anyways, I used to send out these newsletters, and I thought they were beautiful, and I'd make all these like custom pictures, and there's testimonials, and there's gigantic that say like view item. Now, funny thing about these, which tricked me into thinking they were effective, is that they actually had really high click-through rates. And that was great. Like all my friends were like, wow, you get 20% click-through rate? That's amazing. That's really, really high. So I thought I was like, a genius for doing these things and taking so much time and putting effort into them. In reality, I checked it, and none of them were making me any money. So I have like this one and this one with Halloween stuff and blah, blah, blah. None of them made me any money. So the most I made on one of them was like $40 directly from the email, but it cost me $80 in the meantime to just keep the email service up, my vertical response email service. So I was actually losing money by sending out emails, and I thought, like a lot of people, oh, it's customer branding and all that kind of stuff. I'll stay in the customer's head. So then after I started meeting these marketing people, they told me to do some copywriting study. I did, and something really radical happened. The first time I sent out an email in that format, it got 120 orders within like 4 hours, which was 12 times the normal volume I do in a normal day at the time. So the only difference I did was send out a different email. And that was really, really shocking to me, that like a stupid little email could actually like boost my business that much, and that the power of the words had such an effect.
Increased by 12 times. Can we see what the new email looks like?
Yeah. Now take a look at like one of these big, beautiful emails, and I spent all this time photoshopping these, and
That's your Photoshop, the House of Rave that's on the pumpkin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like I did all this stuff, and I'm really proud of this email. And here's the newsletter that just killed it. Right here. This like ugly block of text. There are no pictures. I'm going to slowly scroll down so you can see. There's no pictures. There's no anything. There's one link at the bottom. So let me see if I can show you the whole thing. Here it is over here. So it's just this big block of tomato, 2 pages of text, and this one little link you may be able to see over here. Get your finger lights. That's what the promo is for. Was the only link on the whole thing, as opposed to like 45 links on my other newsletters. And I just could not believe that this stupid little email generated so many more sales. And that's when I just realized the full extent of this and started going full on with it.
All right, that's stunning results. What I'm seeing, though, is a big block of text. And throughout this program, you're going to explain to us why this block of text or blocks of text similar to that work by dissecting the different elements of good copywriting. But let me say this. I know the person who's watching us right now is saying, that's great for Neville. What about me? Is this only something that applies for him because he knows his product well and he knows his audience, he can create a block of text? So let me ask you the question they're asking. Is this only you?
Yeah, so the funny thing is I thought the exact same way, because I thought my customers like to see all these big, bright images. They're clicking on them, and my customers are different. If I do the text thing, they're not going to respond to it. Well, obviously the results have like shown otherwise. So one of the things that people need to understand is that copywriting is kind of like a science. You take people through a specific steps, and then you get them to do one action. And so most people, when they have like and they have a bunch of text, they usually want to convey something or get someone to take an action. And copywriting is just like scientific steps to get them to that action. And
What
I'll
I
actually
mean is,
show.
can you tell me if you've done this for other people or have you only done it for yourself?
Yeah. So if you're watching this video, most likely you're familiar with AppSumo.com. They're like the Groupon of web apps.
Yep.
So if you've seen their emails, their wacky emails where the copywriter must be on crack, that's me. I'm actually writing those. So I'm good friends with Noah Kagan, the founder of AppSumo, and they were doing really well. And he worked out of my apartment a lot, just comes hang out. And I was looking at some of his emails one day, and I was like, dude, these suck. They're just like there's a special for Grasshopper.com, the phone service. And I was actually looking to switch. I was like, oh, and I bought the deal. It was like $100 off. But the email that I got was just like Grasshopper, $100 off. And fortunately, I know what Grasshopper is, but a lot of people don't really fully understand the value that it could have. And so I was just like, Noah, let me try to like write your emails and just see what happens. So he was just sending out a few sentences and emails at the time. So it was like, hey, free email copywriting. Well, why not? Like, how much could he screw this up? So one of the first deals he gave me was something like Kernest, and it's 4 fonts per month that get sent to you, and it was a $150 lifetime subscription. Now, you and I know that everyone can find fonts online for free. And so Noah's like, this deal is good for certain people, but most people are not going to buy it. So it's like going to be a really low selling deal. So let Neville send out the email. So I write the email, and the first few things I write are like, it's actually kind of like a sexually charged email. It's kind of hard to explain. If you'd like to see it, I can show it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring it up. I want people to be able to see every aspect of what you're going to be teaching us here today. You want to just do a Google search for it?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up on my blog over here.
Okay, great.
So I documented this, and the first thing I wrote over here was in the email was, if the names Lucidia Sans Unicode or Curry or Do don't mean anything to you, go ahead and close this message. That's not like the typical first thing you say in an email. You see, my friend, today we're reaching out only to the community of people known as font whores. You know who you are. If your knees go weak when I whisper, it's on, you might be one of them. And so it was kind of like a funny email, and right away, this didn't sound like a typical marketing message to most AppSumo people. And basically, if people weren't interested in fonts, they knew, don't read it. It's not for you. We don't want to waste your time. And so the funny thing is Noah called me the next day. He's like, dude, Kernest killed it. Like, it got a lot of sales. Like, they did never expected, like, the $150 font service to, like, ever get any sales. And it was because of the copy. And then I go into why it was so useful for a certain group of people and things like that. And that's what I'll be showing in the next part of these videos.
Okay. All right. Now I understand it's worked for you. It's worked for a skeptical entrepreneur who gave you a shot with his copy. I want to understand what we need to do in order to create better copy. What's the first thing that I and the person who's watching and listening to us right now needs to do?
Well, one of the first things you need to do is like get inside your customer's head. Now, I was a perfect candidate for AppSumo because they appeal to like web nerds like me who buy a lot of products online. And so I was already in that person's head. So I can say to myself, oh, if I was sending myself this email, I mean, what would I want to hear? Like, what do I need to know? What interesting things can I tell them? So on that Kernest email, one of the things I gave was like a great Steve Jobs quote where he's in that famous Stanford speech that he gives on YouTube. He talks about how he loved sans serif fonts and stuff like that. And so I put that quote in there. I gave them information. I entertained them, and then eventually got them to buy. So the first thing you need to do is get inside the prospect's head.
Okay.
And I can actually give you a pretty cool way to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm not always going to be exactly my customer. So what do I need to do to get in my customer's head if they're a little bit different from me?
Well, there's two ways. There's the easy way where you can just kind of like imagine it, or there's the a little bit harder way where you say and get information about them. You know, what do they make per year? Or what gender are they? What race they are? How old they are? Where they live, etc. Now, if let's say you kind of know who your prospect is. For example, Mixergy is probably like young, ambitious entrepreneurs, stuff like that, looking to learn. You can get inside their head and see what they want. I mean, what motivates them? What are they learn from viewing your stuff? Because everyone's looking to learn something from your stuff. So what are they looking to learn? So if AppSumo is appealing to people in the startup world, they're probably looking how to make more money from their startups, correct? And so I'm showing them why Grasshopper.com will make them more money. I'm educating them that, Grasshopper will do this and this and this for you, and this is how it's going to increase your bottom line. I'm giving away free information to them. At the same time, entertaining. And so you have to first understand your prospect really, really deeply. And so think about everything about them. List right here, that's very small, but are they male or female? What age are they? Where do they live? What socioeconomic bracket? Basically, how much money do they make? What religion are they? What culture do they identify with? Political views? Doctors? Are they dentists? It depends on what it is. So go into all that stuff and see if you really first understand your customer, and then get in that mind frame. And what I call it is I make my own Bob. So I call like my generic customer Bob, and I try to write for him. So that's what I try to do.
So you're saying come up with a character, attribute all the personality traits that you know your audience has, and imagine that you're writing not to a broad audience, but to that one person. In your case, you call him Bob, and that's the way you're supposed to be thinking when you're writing. Okay, onward. Let's move on to the next point and see if we can dig deeper. What's the next thing that we do? I now understand who my audience is. I've got a good sense of who that person is. I've given him a name. I have an image of him in my head when I sit down to write. What do I do next?
Well, one of the things that people get really hung up on, and this is why no one reads these like stupid marketing emails or jargon on the web, is exactly what you said before, that speak to an individual person, speak to your Bob. Now, I write right here, throw away all your academic writing, no one reads it. It's pretty true. I certainly don't. I know a lot of people don't. So imagine you're talking to an audience, like a big audience in a room, and you're addressing them, and you're standing on a podium, and you're saying, hello, conference attendees. We at the Nokia Corporation would like to invite you to blah, 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 blah. Like, it's very impersonal. Instead, if you're just like, hey, guys, what's up? Remember me? I was at the conference. Now, I want to invite you to blah, blah, blah. So start speaking personal. I think a lot of people miss this point. Use a lot of like I's and U's. You have to speak personal, because whenever someone reads their email, they want a personal. They don't want it just addressed to a whole list of people necessarily. They know it's addressed to a whole list, but if it sounds personal, they're naturally more engaged in it. So that's the biggest thing. If you want to do one thing, get more personal in your copy, especially emails.
Okay. What about, and I see in your notes that you bold and underline certain things. Why do you do that? Why not, if you're going to be personal, why not just have text, unformatted text?
Well, if I'm saying, hey, Andrew, congratulations on getting married. That's a big accomplishment for you. It's very bland, but in reality, I'd probably talk to you like, oh my God, Andrew, you got like married. That's fucking crazy. Oh my God. Like there's a lot of intonations that don't carry over in the text. So I tend to bold things that in real life, if I was talking, I'd probably say like, wow, like there'd be like a big exclamation on that part.
Let's take a look at how you did that. Can you show us the AppSumo copy that you wrote, the one that you just referenced to, the very first shot that Noah of AppSumo gave you to rewrite his copy? It was on your blog. And then the next thing I'm going to ask you to show is the block of text that you sent the very first time you changed your way of looking at copy. I want to illustrate all this with specific examples. So let's take a look first at the AppSumo video, the AppSumo offer that you had on your blog, the one that you wrote for the fonts. I see you're opening it up in your email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's take a look at it. I want to show you on my email so I could show you the formatting of it. So here's the block of text. It was like the AppSumo email. I'm not a big fan of putting stuff in like a whole container like this. It looks like a marketing message, but AppSumo did it pretty clean. So right here, you see all the there's also italics. There's also some bolds.
Yep.
So I was trying to get the name Kernest drilled into their head, so I mentioned it. Kernest. Did you hear that? I said Kernest. Stuff like that. So that stuff just draws attention, just to kind of like break up the monotony of it.
Okay.
So as you can see, there's a lot of different stylistic elements over here. There's a quote that's in a different color. You don't want to make it look like a clown page or something like that. A lot of those internet marketing pages you're familiar with, they use like concepts like to the max, so it almost looks cheesy, but it does happen to work with it.
All right.
Yeah,
How about one more example? Do you have the block of text that you first sent out for your site for House of Rave?
yeah.
Let's
That,
bring that up here. And there's something that I want to point out about it that I think is relevant to this section.
okay.
All right. So the first copy that you sent out had lots of images and lots of calls to action, lots of buttons. The block of
Correct.
text that you sent out for yourself, and let's bring that up here in a moment.
That's right here.
Okay.
You're looking at it. Here's the
Yeah.
top of
So
it.
it
The
has
subject line was, "Hey, I screwed up."
one hyperlink you said that was buried on the bottom. Why do we want to have one call to action instead of multiple calls to action, which would allow people to find the exact option that they want and click on that? Why are you saying instead of a whole lot of options, you just have one thing that you can do?
Well, everything that you read and everything that I've done and everything that like even Noah's done with AppSumo shows that people are capable of doing one action really well. As soon as you confuse them with two, it gets a little muddy and then so on. So with this, it leads them down what is called a slippery slope. Like remember that. Whenever you get them reading something, you want them to kind of like be on a slippery slope where they just can't stop. So on this email, I said, "Hey, I screwed up." And I used this whole story about how I'm the owner of House of Rave and I screwed up and I sent all these finger lights to my house and I have them just sitting in my house and like I got to get rid of them and like I'm going to have like this messy house because I have so many and I have to just blow them out. So I'm telling this whole story, and at the end I'm not like and so I have all these finger lights and just leave them there. I leave them down. I'll show you this action part right here.
Okay.
So I give them exactly what to do. So they're already reading down here. Now, a lot of people just leave, and that's fine. Those people aren't going to buy anything.
Right.
So the people that make it down here, they get down to like the ordering instructions and say, you must order using the following link, da 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 da. Because of extremely unique circumstances, there's a strict limit of 24 sets per person. It's kind of making it like, more valuable. And then get your finger lights now. There's only one thing to do over here. That's why you'll see some pages with like a big giant buy now button. They want you to do one simple thing. And that's always better than just leaving your customers hanging or not telling them exactly what to do. I mean,
Okay.
you just got to push them in the right direction, and they appreciate that.
Okay, so our goal is to get them to go to just one place right at the bottom of this slippery slope, and the whole rest of the process needs to be, as you said, a slippery slope. Can you give me one example up above that link of an element of the slippery slope? I want to see how you're moving people along down there. Maybe you can read one sentence or one paragraph that shows how you're not just giving them information, but you're leading them towards the bottom of that slope.
Well, there's a whole process, and I guess we could just move on to the next part.
Okay.
And this is called the AIDA formula. Now, this is something that's really, really important. And I write over here, you got to tattoo this on your head. It's not that hard to remember. AIDA. Kind of like AIDS, but AIDA. And essentially, it stands for attention, interest, desire, action. Such a cheesy acronym. It happens to work really well.
Okay.
And this will save you every time that you're going to write something. Think about this. Every time you're saying something to someone, this is a typical sales process that has been working since the 1800s very, very well. And so the slippery slope, you have to get their attention first. So in my email, I say, "Hey, I screwed up." They're just
Okay.
like, "That's weird. I ordered from this company, now they screwed up." The interest, you get them interested with interesting facts. So I started telling a story about how I sent too many of these things to my house, and that not only ravers use finger lights, because my business is called House of Rave, so people are like, "Oh, I don't need these finger lights." But I start saying night lights for kids scared of monsters, light up Halloween costumes, stop motion photography, yada yada, TV shows. These are all true reasons that people have bought finger lights. So now people are thinking, "Oh, wow, not only ravers use this. These can be used for a lot of different things." And they also start thinking about that in their head. What can I use it for? Like plumbers buy these from me, of all people, Then you get them to desire the product, which is, you start going on and on about how cool it is. And then finally, the action part is where it all culminates and you get them to do something. And that's kind of all the elements of the slippery slope. And to get them on a slippery slope, you either educate them, like give them some really damn good information, or give them a story.
I see. Okay. All right. So we're getting their attention, their interest, their desire, and then boom, right on the bottom, we get them to take one specific action.
Exactly. And that's the typical sales format you can always use. And it doesn't always have to be in a sales format kind of thing. It could just be any email you send to your friends. Like
Okay.
that's always a good formula to follow.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the next point. What's the next thing? Now that we understand the customer, we understand how to create interest, we understand that we need just one call to action. What's next for us?
Well, the next one that a lot of people want to learn is writing headlines, and that could either be like a subject line. And there's a great quote by David Ogilvy that says, the point of the first line is to make everyone read the second line. The point of the second line is to make them read the third line, and then so forth. And so the problem is a lot of people don't write good headlines. They're just like, if I get an email from eBay, it's like, eBay, welcome, blah, 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 blah. It always gives me kind of like a generic thing, and like I only read them if I'm interested in buying something. But if you're
You know
trying
what?
to
I
get
hate
people
those welcome email, the messages that you get with welcome in the subject line. I completely agree with you, and I know those are terrible. But every time I sit down to write a good headline, I'm stumped for how to do it well.
Dude,
And
the best part is Noah sent out a request for people's emails to reformat. So we actually have some guy who sent in his email, which was a welcome email from his. Whenever you sign up for his email list, it says "Welcome to STEM," and then it gives all this other boring crap. And I actually reformatted it to a way I think will be more interesting. So I'll show that at the end.
okay.
But that's a great point. They're really boring. You're just like, welcome. Like, I know I just signed up. Like, I'm not going to read the email. It's just like I acknowledge I got it, and I archive it or delete it, and I never read it. Instead, if you had a really great quote that started getting them on that slippery slope, you can get them to read something and then take further action, even after they just took an action on your website. And so I'll give you an example. Here's something to just jog your memory. Now, you have to say something interesting, and here's just a nice framework to jog your memory. I learned this from this guy called The Wizard. He's apparently this huge guy in copywriting. He came to speak to a group I was in. And he said, make a long list of things that if you were on the street and you just overheard, like on the sidewalk, you'd be like, what? Like, huh? Like, dude, I buried my wife down the street. So one person said, this is the most hilarious example. One person said, my left testicle makes more money than my right one. And like, if you just like were walking down the street and you heard someone say that for a second, you'd be like, what the hell? Like, I've got to know like what this guy was about to say. So you make a long list of things like that, which is this part right here, the attention-getting things you hear on the street. Then you take the product you're selling. So one person was selling custom baseball gloves. And then you combine those two and create a headline. So since that testicle thing was so funny, I'm just going to try to make one up on the spot. But if you're selling some sort of like, I don't know, how to make more money using email or something like that product, you say, my left testicle makes more money than my product, or something like that. Like some interesting thing that grabs attention. Another cool trick that I'll share with you is if you're selling something about email, what you do is go on dig.com or one of those social news sites and go to the search box and type in email and then do top Doug. So you see the ones that were voted up the most times.
Let's do that right now. How about going over
Yeah,
to dig.com and let's give that a shot? I want to see the details of this because I have found that when I have formulas for writing headlines, I at least know where to get started and I'm not staring at that empty input line in my inbox.
All right. So let's say we're selling some product on email and making money or something like that.
Yep.
Kind of like this. I'll tell you, I have an email money. Most Doug. We might have to make that more generic.
Okay, and then you want to
sort.
sort.
Look at this one. Spam gets one response per 12,500,000 emails. That's actually a pretty interesting, headline.
So now how would I
And then
use that in my email? Would I just copy and paste that?
a lot of people actually just do that. Now you have to make it sort of relevant, but also you're just trying to get them on that slippery slope. Now you don't want to make your headline so misleading, like naked girls over here, and then be like, hey, do you need to make more money with email? Because that's just tricking people, and we all hate that, and it doesn't work that well.
All right, I
So
can
let's
see
say
how I
I'm
would use
selling.
that. I might say spam gets one response per 12,005, well, I guess 12.5 million emails, but dot dot dot, and then the opening of my email would say something like, I get much more because I'm more helpful, or I get much more because you and I have a relationship, and somehow lead them in.
That's brilliant. Spam gets one response per 12.5 million emails. I get 20% response, something like that. And
Gotcha.
then right then they're just like, okay, this is how is he getting such high response?
Right.
And then they open the email, and then they're on the slippery slope, and you got to keep them there the whole time. But that's an easy way to just go and create headlines off the top of your head that are already socially proven, which is cool because this is a very attractive headline. It, obviously, almost 3,000 people have dug it. So that's a really great way to come up with cool headlines.
All right, great. I love those kinds of formulas. It helps me get started, as I said, when I'm just looking at that blank input box in my email. All right, what's next?
The other part is the content of your emails is really important, and a lot of people just like fill it with like fluff crap. And what people need to understand is people think like, what do I get out of this? Like when people read your story, Andrew, they're looking to kind of emulate you or see how you got successful. Whenever you're interviewing people, people are watching your interviews to see how they got successful. So there's some really great examples I want to show you of good style emails that give out a lot of information and educate people rather than just trying to sell them. And I got one of them right here.
Okay, so while that's loading up, I'll say that you're suggesting that we educate people in an email, not just try to get them to click a link over to the site where we want them to take action. Why
Yeah.
educate and not just lead? Why
Well,
education instead of selling, for example?
there's a guy named Evan Pagan, and he has a pickup kind of like a pickup artist site called Double Your Dating or something like that. And
Right.
he goes by David D'Angelo. And he sends out a newsletter for guys to like try to pick up women. And for people to buy that kind of stuff, it takes a lot. Like people don't admit they have a problem like that. And so if you sign up to his email, look at this email. I'm going to scroll down and hopefully you can see this.
Yep.
This is like a 25-page email. I mean, this is enormous. Like I'm not even halfway scrolling. I've already gone to like 10 pages. And look at his headline: Why a Wussy Can't Attract Women. So now a guy is thinking, huh? Like, that's kind of interesting. So you start reading it. And what he does in this entire email is he doesn't pimp his products that he wants you to buy. He educates you why a wuss can't attract women and how to solve being a wuss, how to be more manly. He gives you all this information. And what he's doing there is educating you. So every time you see his emails, you're like, wow, I'm going to learn something really damn good that I can use like right now. I can use this stuff right now. And so when people are educated, they like getting those. It's giving them a lot of value. And then after a while, let's say the guy breaks up with his girlfriend or something along those lines happens to where he really does want that information. You're the first person in his mind that they come to for that kind of information in that field. So if you're getting 20 of his emails every month, and they're all like great emails you look forward to, whenever you want to learn how to like pick up a girl or do whatever it is that someone's teaching you, you're going to go to that person. So you really need to educate people or entertain them either way, but it's best to educate them and entertain them at the same time.
I would never think to even test that. If anyone's seen my emails, they see that I go 3 lines maximum. And with 3 lines and a link, I feel like I've overdone it for people sometimes. You're saying test out education, test out a story that leads people in a direction and along the way gives them some value. I guess I should try it. I'm always a little intimidated about adding too much to people's already flooded inboxes. What do you say about that? The idea that I'm now staring at least 120 emails that came in overnight, and one of the marketers who's watching us is going to send me another email that's really long. Why would I read that? Why would our readers? Why
Well,
would our
if they're
customers read it?
well, a good example is Ramit Sethi's email. I presume you're familiar with him. He teaches like how to make extra money. And look at this email. It's really long, okay? It must be like 10 pages long or something like
Right.
that. But he's teaching you exactly how to like find a good idea for your startup, how to ensure people will actually pay you. And he's not pimping anything in this whole email. He's got links to maybe some blogs or something, but all he's doing is educating you through that whole email. So I actually saved this email. And the next email he sent was like educating more about stuff. And I was like, damn, this is just really good stuff. And I actually, in the morning, I check my email like a lot of people. And I'm like, don't have time for this, blah, blah, blah. I set his emails aside for nighttime when I actually do have time. And I'll read them on my iPhone or something like that and go through the entire things. And since he's educating me, I totally remember who he is. And anytime I want any information about that stuff, I will go to him. I'll buy his products, stuff like that. And so the education stuff is like, I'm actually saving an email to read for later. I mean, how often do you look forward to reading an email for later? And so when he's educating me, it's that good information that I'm keeping. And so it's a really, really powerful tactic.
I see. So the line about not being a wussy about dating probably applies to writing copy. Don't be a wuss about writing copy. Don't be afraid of interacting with people. They don't just need a quick in and out.
Yeah, and I'll show you an example of this later. We'll actually take someone's real email they sent in and kind of reformat it in real
All right,
time.
I'm really looking forward to that part myself. Okay, so
Yeah.
we've given them value. What's next?
Okay, well, the next part is this is more of the action part where you can actually follow along and do this as we're speaking. Now, I have a method of setting up an email to where I have them like half finished before I ever start writing an email. And I'm going to show you that right now. And it's really simple. And a lot of people are like, if I want to write an email or some copy, like, what do I write about? They get like writer's block. I
Yep.
never have that because I follow this simple framework. And I'm going to show this to you. And this is exactly how I write all the AppSumo emails. So what I first do is I open up a Google Doc. I mean, you can use any spreadsheet. It doesn't really matter at all. So I'm just going to open up a new document over here.
Okay.
So I've got my doc, and you got a blank page, and most people are like, oh, crap, what do I have to do, da, 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 da. So let's say I'm selling this interview, like how to do copywriting. We'll just do this as an example.
Yep.
So the first thing I do is make some subjects. So, and I usually make about 4 or 5. Subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, subject 4. Then what I do is an important thing is to write your text in about 550 pixel blocks. That way it's a lot easier for people to read. So I insert a table. That's roughly 550 pixels.
Oh,
I'm just gonna
interesting.
Yeah. And so this makes it so, like, if you notice the David D'Angelo email, it was really long and thin. It's kind of like a newspaper because your eyes can easily scroll, you know?
Okay.
You don't have to make people like look across the screen. I have a wide screen, and when I pull up a Gmail, it's just a huge block of text. I have to literally move my head back and forth. It's very difficult to read. So I've got this thing. The next thing I do is I try to make this text size Arial 12. And 12 point is just very easy for everyone to read. And Arial is a universal font. So I try to use Tahoma because that's proven to be one of the easiest to read. However, it doesn't always come up as Tahoma in Gmail and stuff like that. So Arial is the default. The next thing I do,
Arial is the font we should be sending our email in.
generally that's accepted as like a universal font that everyone has on their machines.
Okay.
So if you use some fancy font, some people may not have it. So I tend to use Arial, and that works really well. The next thing I do is now I got this big, what do I write? So instead of doing that, I follow this framework. I literally write out attention, interest, desire, action. Remember our old little ADA formula?
Yep.
So I've got this. So now I've kind of I write it in different sections, and I'll piece it together later. So we're selling a course on copywriting, you know? So get their attention. So we can use that example we used before, that 1 out of 12.5 million spam emails get opened. Something like that. I get a 30% open rate.
I like how you use the headline that we found on Dig. That way I know that you didn't prepare for any of this. You're just kind of
Oh,
just
this is
doing
actually
it right here on the
completely
fly.
winging it. I don't like that, but we'll do it anyway.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go through and write an entire email here, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
get the point of how I'm keeping them on a slippery slope.
Yep.
And so 1 out of 12.5 million spam gets open. I get a 30% open rate. It's actually pretty damn simple if you follow my formula, which I'm giving you below. Now, right now, this is not very hard to read. It's nice big text. It's all in like a tiny little package, and you know what you're going to get in this email. So let's say you're not interested in copywriting whatsoever. This is your time to leave. I'm telling them what they're going to get, and then I start on my interest part.
Okay.
So I'm going to interest them with interesting facts about email. Now, I don't have to just list a bunch of facts, but if I'm trying to like prove to them what they're getting. So I get a 30% open rate. Check this out. Before I use this formula, I got $40 in sales from every email I sent. Bam. I put this in place. I start raking in $2,000 every time I send an email. And notice, like, bam, like that's not professional marketing speak. That's just like how I would say it in real life.
Right.
I mean, don't bore them with boring shit. I mean, make it like you're actually speaking. You can actually record the email into a voice recorder and just transcribe it exactly the way you do it if you really want. And so then you make them, then I can go on and show how I've implemented it. And then I can go on and show them how to do it. So I say, here's what you do to make your emails triple their response rate. And then I'll just like kind of document how I do it. And then towards the end, the action item, usually on AppSumo, you want them to go check out the deal, right? So we tell them, right now, only for one more day, mind you, we've got this deal for $45, which is insane because normally they charge $240. And then you put a big link. So and you often want to make it very blaringly obvious that you are telling them to go somewhere.
Gotcha.
And so oftentimes we'll make this link really big. So even if they don't read this, because not everyone will totally read it. Sometimes they'll just skim over it, check this out. I used this before, I got $40 in sales, bam, I got $2,000 every time. Sometimes that will have just sold the person on their own. So they'll be like, okay, I want to see more. And so they'll just click it, blindly. So you want to make it really blaringly obvious. One of my friends at Google said they always use BFBs at Google. I was like, what's a BFB? He's like, big fucking buttons.
They really do have big, clear, easy to find buttons over at Google. What about that section on desire? How do we fill that in?
So the desire is make them want to desire this product. So I give them all this information on how to do this stuff. Now, wouldn't it be cool to send out an email and cha-ching? I mean, you can make it kind of ghetto sounding sometimes. It's okay. Cha-ching, have cash in the bank. Well, that's what I taught you here, but we're going further in depth in these action videos. I want you to check them out because this is gonna, and I'm gonna spell it wrong on purpose, so it sounds like a perfect communication. So something along those lines.
Gotcha.
You have to make them want to like desire the product. It's pretty self-explanatory. So now we've got this rough outline, and I only wrote like a couple of sentences here, but you can already tell like this email is starting to come together. We've got their attention. They're going down it. Now check this out. I use this formula, and then I'm going to educate them here, and I'm going to show them how to use the ADA formula. So I'll fill in all that stuff. Then desire. And then wouldn't you want to do this on your own website? Like, wouldn't that be cool if you're already sending out emails to like 12x the response of those emails? I mean, wouldn't that be great? And then you show them exactly what you want them to do. I want you to click this link and view the video. And yeah, it's free. And then you can, instead of saying like sincerely or something, you can kind of end it whichever way you want. But here's a little trick that a lot of people forget on the action part. You can say sincerely, Andrew, the mother effing king of interviews. Yeah, it's just like funny. You could do a PS. I love doing PSs. Every time I read the PS in an email, so I always do a PS and then I just bold it so people can see it. And often what happens, I've noticed myself, like I won't even read a lot of this stuff, and then sometimes I'll just read the one PS, and if the PS is interesting, I'll go back and read everything else.
Right, I've done that too.
PS, Laura told us she watched this video and her email rate went up 12x, so she bought a BMW or, whatever claims you have, and you should always be able to back these up, by the way. And so you're like, wow, that's kind of cool. So at least this person is more inclined to click this link now. So the whole point of this whole email is to get them to click this link, but we also got to give them something. So we're educating them, we're entertaining them at the same time, making it sound personal. So even though I barely wrote anything here, this email is already coming together as a pretty good sales pitch. And It's not that I just came up with this because I'm a genius. No, I just followed a very simple formula, and you can do this too right now with every page on your website. It's really simple.
Now, I noticed that there were some blank lines right at the top with the word subject in front of them.
Yes.
What was that for?
Well, usually what I do is I try to I test subject lines against each other. So I'll say subject one, 1 out of 12.5 million spam gets opened. And then like, spam, I hate it. That's why I kill it. And then I just make a bunch of other headlines.
Gotcha,
and
I
I'll
see what
usually
you're
test
saying.
those. Yeah. And often if you're not testing your headlines, because a lot of people don't have really big email lists, or they don't have the capability to test, is you can just look at your like 5 or 6 headlines that you wrote out, and the one that just like immediately just like appeals to you for whatever reason, that's usually like a pretty good one to put up there.
So do you test only your headlines, or are you also testing different bodies?
We test different bodies too, yeah.
Okay.
And generally, the format that works the best is simply an email just like you're seeing right here, without this border. I just have the border to show you it's here.
Right, without the
just
border and obviously without the headlines that we're using for guidance, the subhead, attention, interest, and so on.
Yeah. So if you look at David D'Angelo, which is widely regarded as one of the most successful newsletters out there, there's absolutely no stylistic elements at all in this entire email. He actually just uses like plain text often. He doesn't even use bolds and stuff. Some of his emails he does, but a lot of them are just plain text. And they work really well because people are on this slippery slope. So someone that's really interested in your subject, if you write it correctly, they will keep reading. They don't like it sometimes. Like they don't get some of the apps when people are like, oh my God, it takes so long to read the emails, but I can't stop. Like they almost complain. But by the time they get to the bottom, they are so hooked and they're so convinced that that product is good that they buy.
How long does it take you to write one email?
It used to take me like 2-3 hours sometimes because I keep going back. After time, I got, just like you get better and better at things. It takes me about an hour.
Just one.
Just 1 hour, maybe sometimes two.
All right, that's
Yeah.
impressive. All right, so looking back at that Google Doc that you just created, right on the fly,
Uh-huh.
you created an email copy, an email sales letter for us.
Uh-huh.
The one thing I noticed about it is that as you were writing, it was getting longer and longer and longer. And that leads us into the next section of the course, which is long form versus short form.
Yes. Um, Joe Sugarman put it
Hmm.
best, and I will just quote him. If it's a small $10 item that's easy to sell, use short copy. If it's an expensive item people need convincing of, use long copy. And he gives an example. Let's say you were trying to sell this to someone, and I was selling you, a banana or something like that. I don't have to go and talk about the benefits of eating a banana. I can a little bit, but it will take me roughly 30 seconds or a minute to sell someone a banana.
Right.
If I'm selling you a $5,000 product, this might take a little more convincing for a lot of people. And so you might need to use long copy in that case and educate them and give them a lot of free information. So if what you're trying to sell is a very small, easy to buy item, it could be shorter, or it could be longer if it's an expensive item. But there's another great quote that I don't have written down here. Let me read this to you. Copy is like a woman's skirt. It should be long enough to cover the essentials, but short enough to keep it interesting.
Great
So you
quote.
got to explain the benefits and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, don't make it just too really long for long's sake. Now, if
So,
you have a lot of really good stuff to say and you read your own email and don't get bored of it, you're good.
so I saw in your notes that you said if that long copy must have a slippery slope, which is what we talked about. Short copy for cheaper products, do we still need that slippery slope? Do we still need to have all four elements of attention and so on? AIDA?
I use the exact same formula for long copy and short copy. Like right now, this is a relatively short email if we take out all these action and desire and all the spacing and everything like that. That's a relatively short email. And I would use the exact same format.
Okay. You
I
say if you
wouldn't
get
change.
bored reading it, get it out of the email. So you read it, and if you feel that you're getting bored, you just delete that section out.
Yeah, sometimes I'll write a really long piece of copy and then start going through sections and being like, am I just leaving that in because I already wrote it and don't want to get rid of it? I mean, I'm ruthless when it comes to it. If it's a sentence that doesn't really need to be there, it's gone. Just get rid of it. You'd always hit the undo button. It's no big deal. But yeah, keep them on that slippery slope. If you start getting bored reading your own emails, that's a bad problem. I actually like it's it kind of is bragging. Yes, I am bragging here. I will read some of the old AppSumo emails and keep reading them because I'm laughing at what I wrote like a couple of months ago. And that's a good sign of a good email. And some of those emails that like I'll forward to Noah just as a joke, like, damn, this was a masterpiece. He'll go and look up the stats and he'll be like, that email fucking killed it. And you can usually tell, like, because you're so interested in an email. Like, it's funny, it's entertaining, it's educational, it's got all of the above.
All right, you've just shown us how we can create good email or good copy anywhere on the web.
Mhm.
What about, and this is feeding us into our next section, what about if we're running a company and we can't do our own copywriting and we want to do what Noah did, which is hire you. We want to hire somebody like you for our companies. How do we do it?
Uh, it's kind of just like the same old trial and error thing. What I will tell you is make sure they understand the customer really well. So that's the best part. If someone understands the customer, even if they don't follow the AIDA formula correctly, they usually understand it pretty well. So for example, I'm the perfect AppSumo customer. So for me to write and no copy is a pretty good combination. Now, if you hire me to write a sales letter for 39-year-old moms with 2 kids, I don't know much about this, and like I'll write in my same old offensive style and everything like that, and I might lose those people. So the best place to go is Craigslist Elance. The typical advice I'm going to give you, Craigslist Elance. Elance, you could check, you can see the ratings if they did a really good job or not, and also you can check samples of their work to see if it gels with what you're doing. If you're a startup and you're new and hip, you can write like in a very personal style. If you're ExxonMobil and have to write in stingy old stodgy style, you want a certain type of copywriter. So it's look at the copywriter, and if they know the market really well, if they can relate, that's the best advice I can give you. The other advice I'm giving you is just the typical, like, look on Craigslist, Elance type of thing.
Make sure they can relate, look on Craigslist, Elance, etc. Ask for samples of their work. All right. Well, I know what. I knew there was one other question I wanted to make sure to hit on. The cost. What would it cost us to have one sales letter written about the size of what you were starting to build for us in Google Docs?
It can range from about the really good copywriters that make really, really long pages for like an ebook or something like that. They'll charge up to $1,500, and some will charge even $5,000 and really crazy prices. But you can go on Elance and get a decent thing done for under $200.
For under $200, I get one sales letter written.
Yeah, you can always find people that will do it for under $200.
Okay.
But I'd encourage people to try doing it themselves first.
Why?
Because usually the people that understand the business best are like the business owner. I mean, those are the people that actually have interacted with their customers a lot. You can find out what they want. What's their most common complaint? What's their most common objection? And talk about those in the emails. Unfortunately, a lot of the copywriters, they won't know all that stuff as well as you will.
Okay. All right, let's move onward to where people can learn more after this. How about bringing up a tab and loading up the pages that we're about to describe for people? Can you bring up the Gary Halbert sales letter page that you're recommending everyone go to?
Yeah, I love the Gary Halbert letters. Every successful marketing person I know has read this, is a big fan of his, and there's a reason. The guy was just like, he was a weirdo, but he was a total genius. But Gary Halbert was like a marketing guru back in the day. He's dead now, and his kids put all his letters up for free. He used to have this yearly letter that went out before the internet was around, like literally a letter, and it would teach you how to do copywriting. Now,
scroll through that. Let's just have a look at the design of his copy. If you just scroll through that one page, it's kind of interesting.
His letters, and this is the boron letters, and I'll tell you more about it later. But as you can see, it's all text. There's very little, and then his kids at the bottom put some extra stuff, but this is all his stuff, and it's just text. And notice how he, kind of breaks up text a lot. He writes in shorter chunks, and you'll see that more and more stylistic elements in the rest of his things. But
he explains in one of the letters why he does that.
Excuse me?
He explains in one of the letters why he does that. Like you said, it's important for him to sound natural and also to look natural, like something that you'd get from a friend.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things he always does is, like, in the headers of his, I don't know if he did it on this one. This is a different type of letter than his normal ones. But he always says, writing from north of Jewfish Creek, which is where he lives somewhere. And he always made it sound very personable. And he would write the time and date, like right here. You can see, 1984, June 12th, 5:41 p.m. It just kind of gives it an extra little touch. And if you want to learn a ton about marketing, and I warn you, this will keep you up till 6 in the morning reading every night, read the Gary Halbert letters and start with the Boron letters, chapter 1. I literally printed out every single one of them. So I have like this big stack of all the Boron letters, because they're so damn good, and I take notes and highlight them. And by the end of that, you'll learn a lot about marketing. You'll learn a lot about copywriting. Pretty much almost everything you'll need to know. And then from there, you'll be on the slippery slope to reading more Gary Halbert. I don't even have to tell you. If you do what I say, start with chapter 1, you'll be set. The first 3 chapters are about life and crap like that, but the next ones get really, really good. And it's all just gold advice. Every marketer I know that's very successful in the internet world has generally read it.
All right, how about, you also recommend David Ogilvy on advertising, and Joseph Sugarman, Advertising Secrets of the Written Word. How about bringing up Joseph Sugarman's website on Amazon? Sorry, his book on Amazon. Oh, you've got the book right there.
I got it right here. I'm telling you, these aren't books that I conceptually heard about. These are books I fully read, and you can go through and see that I marked them all up like crazy. I also have Ogilvy on advertising.
Perfect.
And so I will tell you, I recommend these books, Gary Halbert letters first, David Ogilvy second because he talks about different types of advertising in addition to just copy. He talks about different mediums because not everyone just sends out emails or just has a website. So this is a fascinating and great book to read. And
The
then
great
the
thing
next
about
one
these guys who have to write persuasively is they write in an interesting way that engages you throughout their book or newsletters. In the case of Gary Halbert.
Gary Halbert, like you just can't stop listening to his stuff. It's fantastic. You can't stop reading it.
Okay,
And and then the
let's
last
talk.
one is Joe Sugarman. So.
I see. All right, let's talk about what people can do right after this session is over.
Okay, well, right after this session, can I just show you an example of someone that sent in an example email that they were like, how do I improve this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, Noah Kagan sent out a little a blast asking for samples, and one guy sent one in, and I'll show that to you right now.
And so these are real writing samples that people have sent in. You're actually picking one of them out and you're going to scroll through it and show it to us. Show us what this person has already sent out.
Yes.
Okay.
So remember how you were talking earlier in the course about how when people are like, you sign up for something, they're like, welcome to yada yada, in this case, STEM. It's called STEM app. They're like, welcome to STEM app, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a shit? Like, I already know I signed up. Like, why do I need all this stuff? So he sent out this little short welcome email. Now, honestly, I don't think anyone is going to read this crap. And so I read through his stuff, and I'll briefly read some of it. Like, STEM is live. Thank you so much for showing interest in waiting on STEM. It's been a big undertaking, but it's finally ready for the world. You know, no one gives a shit. Like, that's not how you talk to people. I don't tell you, Andrew, well, thank you for showing your interest in STEM. Like, it's such a just dumb way of writing. It sounds normal like that. You think that's what you're supposed to do. It's not. And then he has a movie. I posted a video on the homepage that gives a really quick overview of STEM. If you're in a hurry, check back. Like, you know, like what's in it for them? Like, why would they spend 2 minutes and click on this crap, you know? And then a quick story. Now, the funny part is this quick story was pretty decent. I mean, I set up in a second, but he's like, I was about to shoot out an email to a prospective client, which are called seedlings and stems, by the way, no one cares, who I don't have a lot of history with. I was searching for an easy way to break that action. I remember that I just added weather support to STEM. So he tells this story about how he doesn't know this guy, but with STEM, it showed him all this information about the guy that he otherwise wouldn't have known. So he has a great icebreaker to talk to the guy, and he knows that a year ago he emailed him and stuff like that. This is the best part. So what I'm going to do is I actually already went through and did this, FYI. So I'm not doing this on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I did this before our interview, but I took his email and just put it in my little the format I showed you in the 50 format, and the 5. So he has STEM is live, and then I did a modified version of it, what I would do.
Is it wrong that as you're opening up your list of documents, I'm trying to read to see what other documents you're working on?
I knew people would be spying. I do that on all your interviews, man. I always look in the background and try to see. So anyways, I copied and pasted everything in here. And all this stuff, a movie, blah, 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 that's good. It seems like the action he wants people to take in this email is to watch this movie. But if you look at the email, like it's in the middle, and I posted a video on the homepage, you know, like it's kind of like, what do you want me to do at the end of this email? Like if I look at it, what's going on here? I'll give you a tip. One of my friends who's really high up in Google, the way they test a lot of stuff is they set their laptop on a table. They take 10 steps back and look at the page. And if they can't tell what to do within 1 second, they have failed. That's why Google uses BFBs, big fucking buttons. I'm going to make it very obvious what people are supposed to do. So here's the text. I completely got rid of this part. I thought that part, no one cares that STEM is live.
Right.
That's just boilerplate. Take it out. Let's just get rid of this right now. A movie.
Oh, bless you.
Okay.
How many emails do I get from new web apps who have similar opening paragraphs? It just loses me instantly.
Yeah, I mean, you just signed up for it. Like, you don't need confirmation of that necessarily. People aren't that stupid. And then a movie. So this is the part he wants people to take action on, but they're not going to take action without like I'm not going to say, Andrew, view this video. You're going to be like, why? Why should I view this video? Instead, if I was just like, dude, I have a way that if you don't know someone on email, I can get them to respond to you every single time. Watch my video about it. That's a lot more convincing. So here's
See
what
how
I
you
did.
just got me right there? Now I suddenly care about the company. That one sentence
Yeah,
did
exactly.
more for
Now
me
you're
than the
just
whole
like, well, yeah,
email
show
they
me
sent.
this video. Of course I'm going to click
Okay.
on it. And so what I did is, here's a subject line. Before, his subject line was this. It was like, welcome to STEM. STEM is now live, 20% off launch coupon. Bam! Right away, you're telling them, I'm trying to sell you something. Open this email because I'm trying to sell you something and get you to spend money. And, people don't like that. So here's what I did. I said the subject, here's how to close a sale with STEM. So people just signed up for this thing. So they're obviously interested in your service, right? So instead of saying, welcome to STEM, it's live, here's how to close a sale with STEM. We're going to educate our customer right now. You did it. But here's why you registered for STEM. And this is all the stuff I pre-wrote. Maybe you can relate to the situation. I was shooting an email to a prospective client. I barely know this guy. I'm not even sure if he's married or has kids. I need some way to get a ha 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 out of him.
Let me pause it for a second right there. This
Yeah.
is fun to read, and I know we're going to give people a copy of this so that they're going to read it, and I know they're going to enjoy it. But I know, too, that when we're sitting down and writing our own copy, when we think of, like, are you married, ha ha ha, as lines like that, including in our copy, we feel that's inappropriate. We feel like people are going to think they signed up for a business to do business with us, and here we are chatting with them. Help us get past that concern so that we can appreciate why this is a better approach than something that feels a little more buttoned down in business. Help us understand it so that when we're actually sitting down and writing, we go and type in ha ha ha.
Well, one, I don't think anyone is really that stodgy to where they'd be like, they use the word ha ha ha, I'm clicking out of this email.
Right. The user is not thinking that.
That is just kind of like one of those 1% cases where some nut job will get mad at you. It usually doesn't happen. Two, otherwise, people aren't going to read your damn email in the first place. Would you have read that other email? No, that was a straight to delete button. I mean, there's no content in that email that I saw right off the bat. I was just going to delete that thing, and I was only using it as a reference to know I'd signed up. Now with this, here's how to close a sale with STEM. I'm educating my customer in a fun way. Like, what's wrong with that? And I'm addressing him personally. I'm thinking in his head, like right now I got in the customer's mind. I was shooting emails to prospective client. I barely know this guy. I'm not even sure if he's married or has kids. If I'm trying to get your attention, you get a lot of requests every day. You get a lot of emails. And if I'm like, does Andrew have kids? If he has kids, I could be like, oh, how's Timmy or something like that. It seems like I already know you, so you're going to respond. In fact, I even wrote that later in the thing. So he uses the picture with the guy's family. He does have kids. I banged out a great email that grabbed his brain because it was about him. He must have thought we'd met in the past because he was like, oh, hey, man, good meeting you before. Was it at a conference? So with STEM, it's like he got this guy's attention, and the guy was so like impressed that he knew all about his family that the guy just presumed he knew it and responded right away. So that's like something the prospective client of STEM could relate to, like that story they've probably been through in their work lives before. Instead, if you use words like, prospective client too often and just keep calling him that instead of that guy, it seems it's boring. It's boring,
And I see the call to action very clearly marked. The word here is all uppercase. It looks like it's bold. It looks a little bit bigger, and it stands out from the rest of the text.
Yeah, so if I did my job correctly, I got this guy's attention. I got him interested in what STEM did. I'm getting him to desire it. So I said, STEM saved my ass in this situation simply because I kind of knew enough to write something interesting. Now, that someone can relate to. And so now they're just like, wow, that's kind of cool. This is just one example of how I cashed in directly with STEM. Watch this 2-minute, literally, video of what else you can profit from right away by using it. And then you have the big button, the BFB, big fucking button. And people absolutely know what to do. Now, remember the guy included a coupon code in that? I don't know if you saw that. Whenever you see this later, the transcript, you'll see he included a coupon code, but he put it in the subject line, which is immediately like, warning, I'm trying to sell you. Everyone's getting this coupon code. You're not special. Like, it just buzzes that. I did a little PS down here. PS, since you're such an early bird to STEM, I'm giving you 20% off the first year. Like, not, and I don't just say year, I'm like year, like that's a big deal. Use coupon code Miracle Grow on the sign up page. The code expires in 4 days or whenever 100 people redeem it, which is going to be pretty fast. So use it now. First come, first serve. So immediately, this also creates a sense of urgency that, like, I'm going to view this video. If I like it, I should definitely use this coupon code really damn fast, or else it's going to go away and I'm going to have to pay full price. So this email, I bet if Matt Reed, the founder of STEM app, uses this email, we haven't tested it, but I bet if he uses my email verbatim instead of his, it will have a much higher response rate, and he'll get a lot more people clicking on that video.
All right, and it's
Guarantee
more fun, and it feels more real, and it doesn't feel like I'm just getting some spam from a new company.
Yeah, and realistically, how many people are going to be like, "Oh, this wasn't professional enough. I'm not going to read. I'm not going to do this." You know, it's like one of those, like, you're worried about like this 1% of people.
Okay, so we've given people a whole lot here. Let's end it with one call to action. What's the one action that they should take immediately right after this program is over?
Dude, I say that if you don't take anything, just like do this. Make your stuff more personable and fun to read. Like, imagine you're writing it to one person. Make it fun to read. Talk like you're really talking in real life. I mean, let your personality shine through. Don't boilerplate it down just because you're typing it. I mean, it's very silly. We're trained to do that, but you should not. You should use, like, I'm gonna, I ain't, stuff like that. If that's the way you talk, use it. Make it personable, make it fun to read, educate people. And yeah, that's what I would say right now. Make it fun to read, at least, if you're not gonna follow the rest of the stuff.
All right, make it fun to read, focus on one person, and I've got a feeling that a lot of people are gonna imagine you being the one person who reads their emails. Thanks for leading us through this program.
Cool. Thanks so much, Andrew.
You bet.